Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this video for lecture for week one of health psychology. Instructor Anderson here. I like these videos. I do record them weekly for the lesson, and I want to do it as more of a supplemental and add some other type of uh, um, knowledge, right, background into the assignments. All right, and when you watch these videos, I would encourage you to watch them at your own pace, right? Pause the video, take some notes, and I think that's important for you. All right. Um, I'm outside right now, so if I'm swatting away mosquitoes, I do apologize. It's a beautiful um, morning here, or where I'm at. All right, here we go. Let's go right into the video. We're going to go right from the start here, and we're going to go right there. And I'm going to take my video off just for the fact that that can be a little bit distracting week one lesson. Hope that you're enjoying the lesson so far. So here are the topics in week one: role of psychology and physical illness, the health psychology, versus what the biomedical model is, and then those key frameworks, all right? In learning objectives by the end of this unit, you should examine the key concepts, right? Interpret the dimensions of wellness using theory, all right? And there's going to be a lot of theories that you'll be encountering in the course and then analyzing those factors other than biological. And so a lot of times we think of that biological piece when somebody's ill, but there are other elements to the biopsychosocial model. Here are your tasks. And again, this is all in your learning journal. So again, if you have questions, refer to the learning journal. Introduce yourself in the course forum, read the learning guide and reading assignments, participate in the discussion assignment, complete an entry in the learning journal, and take the self quiz. Excuse me. I'm not going to list the specific reading assignments, but what reading assignments are to do are exactly what it says. Expand your knowledge of the topics, right? To provide you the various concepts from various avenues, right? And for example, when we're asking you about making sure that you're able to examine, you're able to understand those key concepts, those theories, the theoretical frameworks, well, this is exactly what the readings do. And here's what the questions are that you should be putting yourself into with those. All right. And this is all in your learning guide, and so make sure that you go to your learning guide in your class setup here. All right. If you have questions, let me know. But I think everybody is familiar with that. Discussion assignment for this week. It is posted. Make sure you get those in. And it is asking you this week to consider a time when you or a family member, friend were sick. Could be a minor sickness like the flu or something more serious. And this is where the learning really starts to unfold, is discuss how the various biopsychosocial factors have contributed to the illness. All right. And you'll see the other pieces in there. Discuss those various biopsychosocial factors, right? How it contributed. Describe. And if you're like, well, how do I set this up? Open up a separate Word document. And what you do is you take these key, I'm going to show you right here, actually. I'm going to annotate really quick. You take these key actions right here. And this is how you make sure, because when I'm grading these, I am seeing if you've discussed this, I am seeing if you described what you learned from the textbook, and then did you end your discussion with one well thought out post. Now, again, you might say, well, I have 15 well thought out posts or questions or whatever. Great, wonderful, which is one. Yes, I think that's great, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you, and it is a discussion. I've had people kind of expand their discussion post, and that can be not always the best thing in that particular moment. All right. All right. All right, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. All right. Any questions, let me know. Oh, this is another thing too as well. Make sure that that discussion is a minimum 150. I will be deducting points for a minimum. If you do even, and you might say this is being a stickler, um, but if you have 149 words, I'm still going to deduct you, because that is your responsibility to make sure that you have that minimum. 300 words maximum. I'm a little bit more lenient if it goes beyond that, right? So if you have 350, I most likely am not going to deduct you. All right. But if you have 1,000, then I might have to remind you to rein that in a little bit. And another thing too, as well, really quick, is use an informational source. Textbook. Make sure to use the reading assignments. Those are a good start when you are referencing something, when you want to connect your thoughts, your ideas, your own way of analyzing. What are you connecting that with? Specifically, the textbook should always be used, but you should also be using other sources as well. All right. And Wikipedia is not a good source. All right. Learning journal for the week. Here we go. The learning journal information is in the learning guide, and this is what I'm looking for. This is really important. So pause the video if you need to, but making sure that you are doing the learning journal in the correct manner. And how do you do that? Well, this is how you do it. You write a minimum of 300 words, no more than 500. And what you do is you are using the dimensions of wellness model. Write your own wellness for each dimension. We'll talk about that wellness model in the discussion here. And this is exactly kind of what you're going to put yourself into. All right. So here we go. This is kind of what we are talking about for this week, the illness wellness continuum. And we think of ourselves, right? We think of ourselves on kind of this path, right? This road, and kind of this neutral point. This is how we're feeling. We're feeling good. When we're having contributing factors, right? You can see this person right here is running, is exercising. Okay. Um, what do we feel like? What does it contribute to our overall well-being? Now, right here, we have this continuum, this path when we have premature death. There's a lot of factors that are helping in that, right? And I say helping in not a good way. It's a negative way. It's contributing to your environments, your choices, your actions, your behaviors. Okay, those are key in understanding that continuum. Now, you can see this person is cruising along in this direction. Well, what's going on? They've made some choices. Now they've made additional choices to help themselves in that direction, and that is key. All right. And so that is that. So when we think about ourselves in this various continuum, um, we think about kind of in this middle piece right here, right, in how we're looking, what we're doing in terms of our normal health. Okay, and thinking about your experiences, what you feel as you know at a certain age, right? How you feel, even what you're viewing. And we're going to talk about perspectives and perceives, uh, the perceived way of looking at health, right? We're going to look at health a little bit different in our 20s versus our 40s. Now, for example, I'm at the end of my 30s. I'm about to be 39. I'm to a point where, hey, you know what? My choices of what I'm putting inside my body are much more important, and I'm going to pause and think about that more often versus when I was in my 20s, where I'd go through the drive-through. Not saying I wasn't healthy, but I was going to go to the drive-through and have a McDonald's burger every so often, and that wouldn't have been something of a concern because my thought was I'm young and my body can handle it. Now, um, I'm much more aware. Now, at the same time, when we start thinking about this idea of, okay, I'm 39, I'm about to be 39. What is normal health to me? Okay. And what I need to do to move in this direction, right? Now, I've been walking every day. And again, I feel like I'm in good shape. My blood pressure is good. I monitor my blood pressure, but at the same time, I'm more well aware of, you know what, when I'm eating certain foods, it makes me feel this way, and I have to realize, right? In my idea, is that can happen quickly in going in this direction. Now I'm not saying that's going to contribute to an illness right away, But there's this way of this tipping scale, and that's what people can look at in this way too as well. All right. So actually, we went over that already. We went over that already. I apologize. Okay, so really, here we go. So when we think about overall psychology, we think of what? Okay. We think of psychology is not here to tell us what to do. It is to tell us, give us information about situations, about the way our brain thinks, the way motivation affects our behaviors, our perceptions, right? Our personality has a lot to do with, and we're going to talk about personality and health because there is obviously a factor, a connection with that. So in the chapter, it's going to talk about the biomedical model. And that answers the question, what causes illness? Who is responsible for the illness, right? How should the illness be treated? Who is responsible for treatment? What is the role of psychology in health and illness? And so for many years, health psychology was not something that a lot of medical people, a lot of medical, um, I guess you could say professionals inside the field would say, they would look at when people get sick, this is what's happening because of this biological factor, and we're going to look at the choices of the individual. Now, I'm not saying that's not something that's still relatable, but what it's doing is it is actually now expanding. Health psychology is understanding, well, what causes this illness? Um, okay, now is it all on the genetics, right? We can look at genetics and how genetics plays a role in health psychology. Not only tries to understand more about the genetics, but now through the line of let's expand more about how those people have been raised. How about those the kind of more of the adverse childhood experiences? How is this person and their environments from an early age contributed, right, to either enhancing with that genetic makeup of why they become ill, right? Who is responsible? Not only the person, but those other factors. And now that's where it's expanded beyond beyond just the sole responsibility, okay, to the person and the medical profession. Now, with the biomedical model, the sole responsibility for treatment rests on the shoulders of the medical professionals, as we just talked about. Now, in health psychology, it's expanded and it's becoming more and more, um, I don't want to say accepted. I guess it is accepted. Yes, it is. But it's becoming more and more of a, yes, this makes sense. Yes, I can look back at my experiences and understand, right? It is not solely on the person. There are other factors. Okay. And it is complex in many ways because every one of you is different because we all live in different communities. Now, I live in Minnesota and in the United States, and here's what Minnesota says is, it's one of the healthiest states in the United States. And why? Why is it? And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. And there are various reasons. So in this, to understand that is health psychology wants to know that it's just not the individuals, but we need to look at families. We need to look at communities around us and the populations. There are key theoretical frameworks. It's the biopsychosocial model. We'll talk about health as a continuum, right? Back and forth, back and forth. There are direct and indirect pathways and the focus on variability. So health psychology explores the same 5 questions. What causes the illness? Who is responsible for the illness? How should the illness be treated? Who is responsible for the treatment? And what is the role of psychology in health and illness? So here's the deal. When we think about health psychology, it is not just the input of, man, this person's ill. I'm ill. I go to the doctor. I get treated. They need to treat me. But let's take a look as let's look at let's take a look at as a community. What are we doing more so? And in Minnesota, why it is one of the healthiest states is because the money they put into trail systems. Now, Minnesota experiences harsh winters, and people think when it's harsh winters, like today or this year, excuse me, it was a long winter. It was a long winter, and people, uh, had a hard time with it for various reasons, with the lack of sun, the lack of vitamin D, that contributes to the seasonal effectiveness disorder. But here's the deal. Minnesota says in that we've created cross country trails. We have downhill skiing. We have groups that love fat tire biking. We have events outside that promote saying, hey, we can still be outside in the winter time. Now, that's important. And for me and my family, we will get outside in the winter because we have this attitude of we know it's a long winter, right? We know it's a long winter. And because if we were to keep immobile, right, or not active in the winter, this is how we know it feels. Okay. Now you might say, well, how does it relate to the questions? It is relatable to the questions because you have to think of that continuum. You have to think about expansion of ideas. Okay. Now back to the biopsychosocial model of health. We look at various pieces, right? We look at a virus and bacteria. We look at the behavior, the belief systems of coping, stress, and pain, and the class of employment, race, and ethnicity. I put these on here because there is that biological piece, that social piece, and that psychological piece, excuse me, psychological social, sorry. And we're going to cover those, and you're going to read those in your chapter. I'm not going to go too much in depth with those right now because of time, but at the same time, making sure you understand that. And this is a great model right there you can look at because this is going to be referenced in all that we do in this class. I can't emphasize this enough. And the biological piece is the biomedical model, right? They often associate with the relationship of disease and the body of the health. Okay, this person's sick. What's happening to the person? Here's responsible. Let's go to the doctor. Let's treat that. Now, there are things that have been expanded in the medical field, right? And depends where we are too as well, right? Our healthcare system in America is going to be a lot different than it is in Europe or Canada or Africa or Asia. It is going to be different. That's why I like this class. This is why I like you. Love learning from you because I've gained a greater understanding of my competency of culture, knowing that if I have something wrong with me, this is where I go. I go down the road. I take a ride. This is what happens. Now, my pathway is a little bit different than yours, right? And not only the piece of the physical, but it's also the mental health, which is becoming. I am as a school counselor. This is where I put quite a bit of emphasis in the advocacy work that I do, right? Because that has a contributing factor so much our mental aspect of our health to even our physical. And we're going to get more into that in the chapter. So take a look at this and try to connect that with what doing. We'll refer to it throughout the weeks as well. Health as a continuum. It is a sequence. There's a start of an illness. Where does our mind wander off to? What's happening? What direction are we doing? Right? What are we doing with the pain when it is happening? How do we cope? What are our support networks? So it's back and forth, back and forth. Remember that first picture with that person in the wheelchair? They were in the left side with the disease and more towards the early onset of death, but they were going in the opposite direction. Why? What is their adaptation to their circumstances, right? And maybe they had a challenging life, but they're making certain choices, and that's the outcome. It's the choices that make us behave in such a way. That person does not want to pass away sooner. What they want to do is they want to go towards ultimate wellness, health, right? We talk about the direct pathways, the impact on our body, the change of health status, boom, bam, like that. Then the indirect is the ways in which a person works to create that thought. And I cannot emphasize enough in working in the mental health field as a school counselor, and working in the field of psychology. is how that thought can have that impact in the direction of our choices, but more so our attitudes towards something. Um, go back to that continuum, well connected with that. So we talk about just our body. We talk about again the idea of that biopsychosocial model. When we're feeling frustrated, when we're feeling upset with that stress, what does it do to our respiration, our circulation, the body temperature, how it affects, right, our consciousness, and then that we talk about even the acid-base water balance. There is a lot of research that has to do um, with stress levels and how it impacts or even aggravates more of that acid and what that acid does to our body. I know when I get stressed, I'll have more acid reflux, right? And what that does to my body. And then when I start thinking about how it's making me feel, then it changes my respiration, changes my body temperature. Now I have ways of coping, deep breathing, right? Grounding work is what I do as well. So that to me is fascinating with what even just in those moments, how it impacts our body. Again, just a more of and this is actually in your book too as well. So I'm not going to do a lot of emphasis on this because I'm going to start wrapping up this video. And again, feel free to pause this video, go back and forth as well. But I cannot emphasize enough is when we think about the direct pathways, right? Those psychological factors. I'm feeling stressed, right? Um, I am healthy. What's that direct pathway? It's that health status of what it is. But then from that initial psychological factors, that indirect pathway is really what we're doing. Okay. And goes right to that status of health. Okay. So try to connect that into the idea of your experiences, how you have felt. Variability is we understand that knowledge creates a path of understanding or the occurrence towards consequences, whether it be a good consequence, a positive consequence, or a negative consequence. Now, the scale tends to show a fixed pattern of where one's choices goes because what is happening. But you have to realize there are a multitude of factors created in understanding. It is being in this class or not being in this class. It is whether you choose to read the material or not read the material and get a better understanding about what stress does to your body. It is your understanding of whether you choose to have a positive or negative attitude. And then what do you do with that attitude, right? Not only the physiological, but it's the psychological. It's our cognitions, it's our understanding, our knowledge, our experiences, our education, our emotions. What are we doing with our emotions? If we're aggravated or if we're joyful, what is that making? What are our expectations, our goal setting? Are we open to learning, right? Who are our social people? Now, peer pressure, young people versus middle-aged people, older people, right? Um, the choices of young teenagers, right? And what's happening to them. Are they focused on the idea of what it makes them feel? When I used to coach soccer athletes, one of the things that I talked about was I knew when girls before games would be able to perform on the field better because of the choices that they were making. Now, I'm not saying drinking or drugs, that kind of stuff, but it was just their eating choices, their lack of being, you know, uh, um, active, right, in their lifestyle. And so I could choose that. But a lot of it was based on, um, you know, time of the season. Was there a fun activity going on or not? Or maybe they like this Netflix show. So there's a lot of different components that we would look at, right? And that's what we talk about, those social norms as well. Your norms are going to be much different than mine at certain ages. Coping and social support. Who are our support networks? Or maybe we have a lack of. All right, references for today. Also, at the same time, I wanted to put this on there. So when you do reference in the learning journal, the writing assignment, the discussion post, please take note of this is what a reference should look like, an APA format, all right? So again, you can just copy and paste. If you are going to reference our book, here is the author. all right? And you could just take this and put it in there, all right? But this is just good reference of how to fully reference in our book as well, all right? If you have any questions, please, 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 please feel free to reach out. I want to thank you for your time. And again, these videos can be a little bit longer. I like to expand a little bit more on the material. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out. And you can always pause during the video as well. All right, take care. Bye.